This is Concord. We're here on PlayStation 5. Be sure to like the video. Subscribing is great as well. So this is the latest hero shooter game where you get to pick from a collection of, I think it's over 16, depending on if they add more over time, Freestar kind of agents and or special characters that have come together to do random jobs, and you're trying to get paid or something like that. The game has story bits that it plans to release partially over weeks and periods of time. So if you care about that, you can learn about the quirky characters, their weird hijinks, and all of the cool things that make them interesting. So anyways, yeah, between the beta, which was pretty much the full-scale experience, and then the regular launch of the game, I've gotten a pretty good feel for what this hero shooter has to offer gameplay-wise. And yeah, it's intriguing. That's for sure. It's definitely rather intriguing. You have a set selection of abilities, and then as you kind of pick the different characters, you'll get a feel for them like any other hero shooter that exists out there, and you'll be able to more effectively use their abilities to capture objectives or just do straight up shooter things. It's a pretty straightforward shooter game. It's not like you're necessarily trying to, I guess you would say, push objectives or anything like that. You'll have like ring-based stuff, you have your regular kill matches, you got stuff where you're like attacking and sort of defending with bomb planting kind of stuff going on, and yeah, kind of just your run-of-the-mill shooter, but it has a kind of Guardians of the Galaxy-esque kind of vibe going on. It's sort of like the budget Guardians of the Galaxy, some would say. So the gameplay, it's well polished. Visually, it's pretty impressive. But gameplay-wise, it just really isn't that fun to play. I find it to be really rather boring and just a little less interesting. I play a lot of shooter games, and I think a big issue with this one is just like the movement doesn't quite feel right, feels very slow to do stuff, and the gunplay just doesn't feel very good either. People will have all kinds of complaints for this one, but for me it really does come down to the fact that it's just not very engaging and interesting. Like, the matches are decently quick, the combat flows, you die decently fast, there's a good selection of characters out there. It's just not very fun to me. And people, like I said, will have all kinds of different issues and thoughts on Concord. I always try to go into things with an open mind when working on review-type stuff. But for me, really, it's just not very engaging to play. And it just kind of feels weirdly generic. And I think that's a big issue for this one. So what are we getting here? It's like a 4K resolution, but that 4K resolution is achieved through a temporal upscaling from 1440p. So it's like natively rendering at 1440p, and then it's temporarily scaled to 4K, which isn't too shocking. I mean, it's a UE5 game. It's actually pretty visually impressive, like I had mentioned earlier. I think the colors really pop. It's got a vibrant style. I wish the characters had a bit more of a vibrant kind of style to them, or the character designs in this range from okay to kind of downright ugly, or just aesthetically displeasing, which is a shame considering the environments they're in are very cool looking. Honestly, they've got some really interesting levels and a decent selection of levels at that. It's also 60 FPS. There's no visual graphic options that you can change between. It would have been really cool to have a 120 FPS mode, considering that this is a competitive shooter and it's a first-party competitive shooter, so a little weird that they weren't able to provide a higher frame rate option. I don't know if people were expecting that. I mean, 60 FPS is okay, but like, again, competitive shooter-wise, just kind of was expecting a higher level of fluidity being an option. You can turn off motion blur in the graphics settings, and the game does have crossplay which is on by default, but the game actually asks you before you start playing, would you like crossplay on or off? And it's PS5 and PC that are able to play with each other, which should hopefully help a little bit with keeping player lobbies kind of going on this one. And we'll have to see how long this actually makes it as a game, as it just doesn't... I don't know. I really don't know how well this one's gonna do. It just doesn't look super great from my perspective, gameplay-wise, as it's just not really an easy kind of thing to recommend because I just don't find it very fun. I got similar vibes when I was playing like Foam Stars, and I was just kind of like, wow, that was sort of terrible. Oh, now the match is over. We're gonna have to jump into another lobby. Kinda lost my trail of thought there, considering it took a few minutes to find a match. That's another issue with this game, is the matchmaking times. There's not many playlists. You have your deathmatch stuff, like I mentioned, where you're just kind of killing each other. You have your ring-based stuff, which is what I'm in. And then there's also the capture, defend kind of planning kind of mode too. And that one, I literally, since, well, the beta I was able to find matches at launch. That one I cannot seem to get lobbies going in, which is a bit of a problem. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this one is embraced gameplay-wise, and whether or not the player base kind of holds, or if this thing will have to change dramatically over time, keep players kind of going. See, that's the thing, is like foundation-wise, they've got some interesting stuff going on. They've got a plan. It's a premium game. You don't have to like pay to win. You don't have to pay for aggressive stuff. You don't have to work a battle pass and everything right now. You kind of earn progression stuff for characters. I mean, it's kind of a refreshing take from that perspective, but at the same time, it's sort of like, if the core game itself isn't enticing enough, like, who really cares, right? Because then you don't have enough people playing it. So you kind of earn, I guess you would say, like, outfits and cosmetics. There's all kinds of stuff, like you can change how your guns look for each of the characters. You have little charms. You can have a bunch of different outfits, but the outfit options, again, just like I said, I don't find the character designs in this to be very aesthetically pleasing. Most of them really, really bizarre choices for the offerings. They do have a very diverse crowd of characters. There's quite a few different options you can pick. Humanoids, and then a little bit beyond, giant robot thing. Giant robot, lizard lady, that's kind of cool. And yeah, I mean, they've got some different choices for the options and how they look and the shapes and all that. So if you're looking for variety from that perspective, there's definitely a lot of choices. I don't find that many of them are really totally useful for combat and stuff, but I mean, that's going to come down a lot to personal preference gameplay-wise of what you get used to and what you find plays best for your play style within the game. As I said, with like over 16, and maybe they'll add some more down the road, kind of like hero characters. There's certainly a lot of choices that you have available to you if you want to go in any certain direction with the style, and that's player choice, right? All down to player choice. And then the game modes play pretty fine. Matches are well paced, like I mentioned. I do find that the lobbies seem to be incredibly lopsided for scores, typically. So that's interesting if that's something that you care about at all. And then there's lots of things you're sort of skills-wise challenges and stuff like that. You're constantly like progressing, quote unquote, and like it's your very typical multiplayer kind of game. They've just kind of opted for like a premium shell to kind of like sort of ride this one behind, and I don't know if that's the best of choices. I don't even know if necessarily like a free-to-play kind of shell would be more enticing for people either. And yeah, that's kind of the problem, is like I sit here and I'm like, what would you really talk about for this game? You know, it doesn't really have its own personality. It's basically like a knockoff. Oh, we're down a player too? Great. You know, it's kind of just basically like a knockoff Guardians of the Galaxy type of experience. It's just another one of your run-of-the-mill hero shooters. There's no game mode that specifically defines this where you're like, wow, this game mode is so different and new. It feels like the whole game is just kind of derivative, borrowed thoughts from other, you know, sort of situations and setups in games. It really has, at its core, I would say, if you've played Destiny, this game is basically Destiny as a hero shooter, but minus the neat elements of how the guns and everything in Destiny kind of play out. And also the UI, okay, it really drives me crazy, this game mode, where it just says A, B, and C in the middle of the screen. That looks like some early level learning UI kind of aesthetic design. It should have like just a square around each of those would be fine. It's just there's something lazy and unsettling about the fact that it just says ABC. It's a dumb thing to like wrap your head around and be like, oh, I hate this, but like it really actually does genuinely bother me. It just seems really lazy, that part of it. Because everything else in the UI is like pretty clean, pretty sharp, pretty run-of-the-mill generic kind of like hero shooter UI, but like that part of it just drives me crazy. It'd be cool if you could at least like even push it to like the top right or something like that. It's just, it really is like front and center bothering me. Because it's just so like too minimal, which is weird. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. Is it a bit soulless? I don't even know if I can necessarily say that. Like, definitely looks like there was art direction. Oh, can I also say that it's really weird? Like, you can clearly tell that we're in like a square, like, skybox there. You can kind of tell like there's a crease right there. You can tell where like the edges of the skybox are on this map. It drives me bonkers. You know, but like it looks visually nice, right? Like it's got a good aesthetic going. It's pulpy with colors, or pulpy with colors, colorful, vibrant, crazy, over the top. Nothing's sort of restricted when it comes to the color range. It's just weird that the characters don't have the same sort of like visual pop. I don't know how they sort of made them look kind of bland. It's really weird. It's very, very strange. Like, I don't quite get that. And I'm sure there's some character personality stuff. I don't know. I found the cutscenes in cinematics really cringy, but maybe some people are really into that type of humor thing. Ah, I gotta find another match. This takes forever. So we switched gears and we went into the killing mode, the deathmatch type mode. So this one will have us focused more on shooting, which is exciting. Oh, we got that same level. There actually is a decent selection of maps that are present within this game. They do all actually flow decently well. Whoa! Ho, ho, ho. That is a wall of a wall of death there. Wow. Yeah, that was a wall of death is what that was. So yeah, the maps flow fine. I find that a lot of the level spaces don't really, like, places on the map and spaces don't really get used too much. Even with objectives where you're kind of floating around the level and the rings are kind of changing in that, I find that, like, the edges of the maps are typically just kind of, like, left alone. Which is a bit strange, but other than that, they do kind of flow well. They look nice. Like, aesthetically, I think they kind of nailed the different environments. They feel like out of this world, sci-fi, visually impressive locations that you're visiting and doing little battles on. Usually ruins of some kind of weird magical thing or some kind of, I don't know, like an oil rig type setup. Like, this looks kind of like an oil rig type thing, and shipping places, stuff like that. I mean, there's a decent selection of maps. It's not a mind-blowing number, but it's a solid number for a multiplayer game that just released. And as always, you know, if it becomes popular, I'm sure they'll add more. They probably already have more sitting there in the pipeline waiting to go, as they always do for these types of games, because they, you know, envision them as massive successes that are never-ending fun joyrides. And yeah, I guess it's like kill confirm, basically. I don't know, just trying to show off all the different characters that I can, too, while we're playing this. You know, everybody's got their different guns, their different setups, their different ways to go about it. I kind of like this character to a degree, because she's crazy, but, like, Gunplay wise, usually this gun isn't super ideal. Sometimes you're gonna get lucky with it. I don't know. I haven't found that there's necessarily also like a crazy level of skill involved. A lot of it seems to be kind of luck. Yeah, I'm a rocket person who just sit there, blast, blast, blast. Playing as a crossbow lady, just kind of floating around the air, boom, boom, boom from above. Like it's, I don't know, maybe some more strategies will formulate, but I've actually got like a good amount of time in behind this game, and it just, yeah, I don't know. It kind of seems like okay random shooterness, which I think might work for some people. I don't know. Just kind of looking forward to sort of wrapping up on this one. Moving on to the next kind of shooter game that comes out. Like, it's honestly really hard to come up with, like, even talking points for this game, because it is so by the numbers and pretty quick to kind of go through and play. You go in, you shoot some stuff, other people shoot things at you. There's no specifically defining game mode that, like, really splits this away from other things we've seen. You're kind of just going about blasting stuff. And as I said, the best elements of this are basically the fact that if you like the premium angle for a shooter game, you're not going to be like nickel and dimed yet. For any sort of stuff, you actually earn things in the game, which feels like a bit of a foreign concept considering how video games are in the modern era, so almost feels a bit retro. And you know what, like honestly, games that are premium can totally work, that are multiplayer. I've played numerous successful premium multiplayer games over the years. They just have to hit the right crowd, and I don't know if this one will be able to hit that, because I just don't really know what that sort of like catching element is for this one. Gameplay wise, it's like aggressively okay to below average. As I've mentioned, I don't think the gunplay is very good. I don't think the pacing and the movement creates very exciting or constantly exciting moments of action. It just kind of feels sort of boring to play. And that is, to me, a major problem, because there's 4 billion shooter games. There's a good dozen upon dozen of heroic shooter games that come and go all the time. I sit there, look at Concord, well, sit there and play Concord, and I kind of go like, you know, what's the crazy value here that's going to keep me playing, keep this installed, or take, you know, focus over some other shooter game that's got a battle pass to grind or some other thing for me to work on. And I just don't really know what exactly the catching point is here, because I don't think it's the cast of characters for me. I don't think it's the gunplay. I don't think it's the game modes, because we've seen these game modes in every other game. There's just not really a specific element of this that really does deliver on something that makes me want to be compelled to like jump into this for new seasons. Like, it's cool that they're trying to do like a lore building narrative type thing, but I'm not really into any of the cinematics that they've put out thus far. I've sat there and taken them in, so like I've witnessed them, which is, you know, it was a moment in my life for sure. Definitely a moment in my life. Was it a good one? I don't know. It just kind of was stuff. Like, at least they're high quality, high polished cinematics, and the characters all have different voices. They all say things. Stuff happens. So, yeah, Concord. I don't think this one does anything different from anything else we've seen, unless you're really into the characters, or yet another hero shooter, or you want to play Destiny as a hero shooter, or Destiny, like the Destiny PvP, or just like another kind of multiplayer game. Other than that, I don't really know specifically what this is giving you over any other shooter that exists out there. And I know that's probably pretty harsh sounding. I think I'm kind of being open and fair in regards to how I'm looking at this game and what it offers, and I'm just kind of sitting there being like, you know, like, cool and all that, but yeah, I could easily uninstall this, forget about it, and I really wouldn't care for the rest of my life, honestly. Yeah, pretty forgettable. That's for sure.